and welcome to 99 Yards, American football for UK fans. I am your host, Bhandari, and this week I am joined by Ryan Conway, Shona Duthie, and new to the 99 Yards team, fantasy football aficionado Chris Milner. How is everyone?
Good, yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Can't complain. Very good, thank you.
It's been a fascinating week in the NFL. So we'll be discussing the news of the International Series game moving from Mexico back to LA, and also Le'Veon Bell walking away from his deal at the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll also be introducing a new regular segment on the show, which, if our listeners are into fantasy football, they'll no doubt be interested to hear what Chris has to say. But for now, let's kick off our show with the news from Mexico. A last-minute change of venue for the huge Rams and Chiefs game. It was announced yesterday that the game would be moving from Mexico back to LA due to poor pitch conditions. What do you think went wrong there?
I think first and foremost, has anyone seen how often that pitch has been used in the last 6 weeks? Has anyone had a rundown of the events on that? I've found it earlier. And in October, they had a Shakira concert that was bookended by record rainfall in the city. Then last Wednesday, that pitch hosted another concert, a local one, but still a concert. And then on Saturday, Cruz Azul, one of the teams that played on it, because it's their home venue. So over the last couple of months, that pitch has taken a serious beat, and I'm not sure who's in charge of when that pitch gets used, but that's an issue.
The state of the pitch, first of all, was just like absolutely unreal when I saw it. And then I also heard there was a rumor going around that if the game was still going to go ahead in Mexico, that a lot of the Chiefs and Rams players said they weren't willing to play, because if they played on that pitch, like, they would 100%, there would have been injuries. So I don't really blame the players for saying that if that is true. And also, I just don't understand why the NFL weren't looking at the state of the pitch until this week, and all of a sudden, oh my God, the pitch is in a mess. We can't play here. I don't know. It's bad from both ends, I think.
I mean, I agree with you, Sean. I think that pitch from above looked like an impressionist painting. But like at the end of the day, like I'm a Redskins fan, so I'm used to FedEx Field. So looking at bad turf is not new to me. However, I do think they could have had a contingency plan. And like, if you think about other possible options for people that say have bought tickets to go down to Mexico, they should have looked at the Estadio Olímpico Universitario, right? It's also in Mexico City, similar capacity at 70,000. Equipped to host American football games because the Mexican college team play there, I think the Pumas Doradas. And check this out, it also has an Olympic cauldron on the top of the upper deck, just like the LA Memorial Coliseum. So it would have been a real Rams home game then.
Yeah, it's just all of a mess. And the NFL have released today as well a statement saying that there is a plan in place for your tickets to be refunded for the game, but then your flights aren't going to get refunded, and neither is your hotel. I just think it's all a bit too late to change a game.
It's a bit of a PR nightmare that the NFL doesn't need, considering, well, they always have PR nightmares, but considering the state of considering the state of Wembley when Spurs had to play a critical game on it after Wembley had hosted back-to-back games, that isn't the NFL's fault, but they're still attached to it. It's just not a good look for them, because now they're met with the same fiasco, so it sort of compounds the Wembley look as well.
I mean, I understand that it's a Rams home game as well, but like, I feel like that's also I feel like that is also a logistical nightmare for them, because also at the moment you've got the wildfires going on, which is obviously devastating for everyone in that area, and they weren't expected to play here, so they now have to see how they can plan like traffic and get tickets to people that were going to go to Mexico City, and it's all got to be done by Monday.
Yeah. I think that moving forward, the NFL needs to pay a lot more attention to the surface of the pitch that they're doing these international series games on, because there's not many turf pitches in the National Football League, but all of the pitches that they would use if they were away from America are going to be turf, and they're going to be in winter, and most likely they're not going to be in a dome. So you need to think about that.
Conversely, I think for the Rams being at home, I know there are some factors around the wildfire stuff and stuff like that, and obviously all our thoughts with people who are suffering out there right now. That in a football sense, the Rams are chasing home field advantage with the Saints. So if this affects it, impacts it one way or the other, this could be a game in a situation that's looked back at come playoff time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I did hear the Rams as well were planning to actually give out free tickets to all the firefighters and the communities affected, so they could come to the game, which is a really nice thing for them to do. And like you said, all our thoughts are with everyone out there, because it's just absolutely devastating to go through.
It sounds like a wise move, but it's just a shame that they had to move it. Obviously, there's the fans who are in Mexico would have been super excited about this game, and the fans who've made the trip to travel as well. There's a guy I saw on Twitter who has travelled over from Ireland. He's in Mexico now, and he's got no way of seeing the game, obviously in LA. So, yeah, it's a real shame. Other news this week. Tuesday was the final day in which Le'Veon Bell could return to the Steelers in order to validate this year's contract. He chose not to, meaning he forgoes over $14 million. This means next season he will either be stuck in the same situation he was this year, or that the Steelers will release him. Surely they let him go at the end of this year. What do you make of that one?
I kind of see this from 2 points of view, right? Because if you're Bell, you have seen players, right, like Earl Thomas. You've just seen Des Bryant come back after 7 months and get injured, have big injuries, and this was the whole point that they were all trying to make. They wanted to get that bigger contract so they could, look after their families if a serious injury did happen. I kind of totally see where he's coming from, and I didn't actually think he was going to come back. I was convinced for weeks that he wasn't. From a Steelers point of view, they must be absolutely fuming, because he is one of their star players. Obviously, you have had James Conner come up, and he's done absolutely amazing this season. So hat tip to him. But I wouldn't see why they would want to try and keep him. If they do, I'd be very surprised if they do. But I don't think they will.
Yeah, I don't think they'll keep him. But at the same time, I don't think that injury risk is that valid of a reason to not play in the NFL. I think you can see that is an argument when players are coming out of college and they don't want to play in bowl games so as not to affect their potential draft position and earnings that they'll earn on a rookie contract. But look at Darius Guice to the Redskins. Okay, the guy tore his ACL in the preseason, right? And didn't, you can tear your ACL at any point. Doesn't matter how fit you are, doesn't matter how fat you are, says Des Bryant. It can happen all the time. It happens in the NFL. So, yeah, he could have torn it if he comes back and plays for whatever remaining games this season. But he could very easily tear it the first snap on the first game of whichever team signs him. Unfortunately, now he doesn't have any tape from this year to show potential teams that want to sign him what he's got. He's only got his 2017 tape, and the injury risk is still going to be there next year. I think it was a poor decision by him.
I mean, I don't think teams will be too unhappy, or it's too much of a concern that they don't have too much tape on him from this year. He's Le'Veon Bell. We know what he can do. I think that I think the concern is he going to get more than Todd Gurley, who that's what he's basically sitting out for, and I'm not sure that he's better than him. In fact, personally, I don't think he is better than him. I think Gurley's playing at a legit MVP level. So it becomes a question of who's paying for him, because I don't think a contender can give him the kind of cash that he is after. I mean, he reportedly rejected a 5-year deal with the Steelers between 14 and 15 mil base salary. 33 mil of it was over the first 2 years, reportedly, and in the first 3 years he'd make about 47 million. So who's giving him more than that, who is in a similar situation to Pittsburgh, where they're a Super Bowl contender?
He said he wanted to be paid like a quarterback, which
is he chasing a Kirk Cousins type thing?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Because I was thinking maybe if he's looking for a shorter term deal, so instead of the big 5-year, 6-year deals that you get? Is he looking for maybe 3 years? I couldn't even pluck a figure out of the air, but 3 years at an awful lot of money, fully guaranteed. Is that kind of his angle?
No one would fully guarantee him as a running back, though. That's what I think. Yeah,
I mean that's personally what I think. But is that what he's after?
Quite possibly, but who knows what he is thinking?
That's fair.
The problem is now though, with like every contract in the NFL, they're so public and you know what everyone is earning. So like recently you've just seen Aaron Rodgers become one of the highest paid quarterbacks. Russell Wilson's contract,
the highest paid
sorry, the highest paid. Sorry. Until Russell Wilson gets his contract. Anyway, so
excuse me, sorry, I just threw up a little in my mouth then.
Well, it's true, because the Seattle's going to have to pay him, and Russell now knows how much Aaron has been paid. So you're going to tell me that Russell's going to take less money than Aaron Rodgers? That's probably not going to happen. Then Russell Wilson will then get paid more than Aaron Rodgers, and then it goes to Jared Goff when he's then getting his contract. He'll then say, "I want paid more than Wilson." And I know this is quarterback level, but it's the same in every. It seems to be the same in every position right now. One player gets paid, and then another player gets paid higher from another team, like the money he was wanting from somewhere else, if that makes sense.
I don't think Bell has the same leverage that I think he thought he had. I mean, James Conner's come in and that offense just hasn't missed a beat. He's been superb. And, guys like Todd Gurley and David Johnson, guys who he wants to be paid more than, are having really, really good seasons. So
David Johnson's a bit hit and miss, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
From a different angle slightly, as someone that didn't draft Le'Veon in fantasy, I've kind of got the objective distance to find it funny to see which players he was being dropped for today. Like I'm talking like LeGarrette Blount,
one
kickers,
of the guys, one of the guys in my league
defenses.
drops in for Cody Parkey.
Yeah, it's never been seen before in the landscape of fantasy football. And I also think it's hilarious that this season, on paper, I am as good a running back as Le'Veon Bell. Right, 0 carries for 0 yards, no touchdowns. That's a stat line every person in this podcast has. All right, so give us $40 million not to play football this season. That's
No. I want more than 14. I'm holding out.
Well, look, here's to hoping they settle that sooner rather than later, so the whole saga can be put to bed. Well, what else is new? This week the Pro Bowl ballot opened. Do we still care about the Pro Bowl?
Yes, I say people still care about the Pro Bowl. Right? I mean, it's kind of like
I can't go on. Sorry.
No, I mean, I don't really know why I said that, but I feel like
I was doing some soul searching earlier.
Were you digging down deep?
Yeah, and I was
like
asking myself, and I was doing some high level sort of thinking in my safe space, and I figured I'm the same as Chris. I like it, but I wasn't sure why. And then I figured, actually, the reason I like it is I like the players getting the recognition. I don't necessarily like the Pro Bowl. I like players getting those nods from, the peers, the fans, everything else, that a player has been recognized to be a Pro Bowl caliber player. And that's what I like about it. But the Pro Bowl, the game, the actual game they play, no.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there, right? It's as a metric, I think it's worth having because, no one's getting, people can win the Super Bowl undeservedly, Players can beat players. No. I'm not pointing at you guys, Seattle fans.
Eli Manning.
I'm not.
Hey, you got to 2 Super Bowls back to back, right? If you're going to talk about anybody, it was definitely the Eagles last year. Okay.
Right, but forget the team aside. But every player on that squad gets a Super Bowl ring, right? That's what I mean. Is some people contribute more than others, like on that level. But on the Pro Bowl, you're not getting to the Pro Bowl unless you're absolutely mint at your position. You know what I mean? You can get a Super Bowl ring even if you don't play in the Super Bowl. The punter could get one. They might not punt the whole Super Bowl.
Might get one.
Depends whether they wait. I mean, they just signed Marshall, so maybe they're going to cut him to make a bit of room.
Oh, mate. But no, yeah, I care about the Pro Bowl a lot more than I care about, like, say, the top 100. I mean, JJ Watt has been on the top 100 and played like 3 games. Aaron Rodgers was on it and played like 6. Aaron Rodgers was in like the top 15 and played like 6 games. That's absurd. He should easily be the top 5 still. But no, you get what I mean. And there's some weirdness with the top 100 where it can be taken different ways, and so I care about the Pro Bowl a lot more than I care about that.
And I think that's it. Half the fun is in the voting, isn't it? For me, there's something that's a little bit, I guess, school playground about the whole process. So let's talk about which different and underrated players that you might vote for this year. Chris, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, right. So call me a homer, but I'm going with Redskins defense. I'm going with Redskins defensive interior lineman Matt Ioannidis. All right, because everyone talks about the Bama boys for Washington, but this second-year guy out of Temple has been putting up stats, right, and is currently in the top 10 of all interior linemen for sacks at 7.5 sacks. He's also got 19 solo tackles, 11 quarterback hits, a forced fumble and fumble recovery, and he's only been named a starter in 4 games this season. Okay, so think about this. His snap count is half of that of starting defensive linemen around the league. So when you do the maths, he's actually sacking the quarterback on a per snap basis more than anyone, like more than Aaron Donald. And he was a 5th-round pick. I mean, talk about underrated.
Yes, you did go home, as will I.
It was all so inevitable, wasn't it?
Totally.
So I am going a little bit out there, but I don't care because I really like him. I'm going with Trey Flowers, who was drafted by Seattle this year. The reason I'm going for him, he went 5th overall. No, 5th round, not 5th overall.
All right, 5th round, another 5th rounder.
He actually was a safety at Oklahoma State, but when he came to Seattle, they moved him to right cornerback. So this is a position that you're supposed to either have Byron Maxwell or Dante Johnson playing, but Byron Maxwell's obviously now been cut, and Trey Flowers has actually been the one that has cemented that position as his own. That's quite impressive for a guy who came to Seattle as a safety. He's also been pretty impressive in defense, I think. He's had 3 takeaways throughout the season. Okay, he had a rough start at the Denver Broncos game, but after that, he managed to tip the ball away from Todd Gurley, right? We did lose the game 33-31, which I'm still upset about, but he tipped the ball away from one of the best running backs in the league. That is impressive for a guy in a rookie season. And Frank Clark obviously managed to get the ball and that play. The other 2 was against David Johnson in the Arizona Cardinals game. He forced into fumble, which Bradley McDougald was there for the recovery. And the other one was against Michael Gallup of the Dallas Cowboys, when that Earl Thomas somehow managed to get the ball against his leg and get an interception, which I'm still not quite sure how he did that. But that is really impressive for a guy that is 5th rounder and came into this new look Seattle defense. Everyone keeps saying it's not the same as Legion of Boom, but actually they're making it on their own.
I have 2 that I made extensive notes for because one was a homer. One was a homer like the other 2 guys, and then I was like, no, it's too much of a homer, so I'll have to swing back round and try and pick another player. So I've got 2, but I'm going to go with the homer because why not get the hat?
I'm going home, Sue.
Yeah, mine is Kenny Clark. This guy might be the most underrated defensive player in all of football. He's combined from the nose tackle position. He's having a career year, 40 combined tackles. He's got 5 sacks, which is already more than he had all of last year. And the guy just eats up double teams, and he's so quick. I mean, there's a stretch play against Miami, and he swims over the center and just gets to Gore in the backfield for like a 3-yard loss. Him and Mike Daniels have been doing that all season long. It's maybe not showing up in the Packers' 22nd ranked rush defense, but he's just an absolute force of nature, and he turned 23 like a week ago. The man is going to be around for a very long time. He had 3 QB hits on Jared Goff, and in that first half against the Rams, the Packers' defensive line really made life uncomfortable for Goff, and he was the key reason for it, because he was allowing other guys to win one-on-one matchups when they could. And his relentless hustle he's brilliant. My other guy was who Shona said, but not your actual guy. Mine's Bradley McDougald. He was my other underrated Pro Bowl guy. His 2 picks came in the opener against Denver, but he's such an active tackler. He's got 47 already this season, and he had at least 1 pass defended in the first 4 games of the season, in each of the first 4 games, and he plays the run really well. Against Arizona, he was in run support. He was always matched up with Fitzgerald, who we know is one of the best blocking wide receivers of his era, and he was making plays. I really like him at that safety spot.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that his knee holds out for the rest of the season, please, because we suck without him.
He's a good player. It'd be interesting to see how he matches up when the Packers play Seattle on Thursday, especially with Aaron Jones being our primary back, finally.
A fantastic move that on Aaron Jones. We've got him in fantasy, and I've been waiting all season for last week. And
yeah, me too.
I slightly fell asleep during the game and woke up. I thought I was dreaming. So I think I'm dreaming. 145 yards, 2 touchdowns. You're out of your mind. Quick one about Kenny Clark though. Did he replace? Who was it that went out for the year with the tear and the knee tear? Was it Sean Richardson?
No, that was
Mohamed
Wilkerson.
Yeah, sorry.
No, Kenny Clark is the nose tackle. Richardson was playing D tackle or end, depending on how Pettin deployed our front 7. So yeah, again, a nose tackle is one of them, like Brandon Williams in Baltimore. People just think that they're these big guys who just eat up double teams, and very unfairly as well. They maybe think a bit like how Vince Wilfork will maybe be viewed as that big dude, but I mean, nose tackles now are athletic, and he's one of the best.
I'm also going to give a shout out to Rashad Penny for getting through that Rams defensive line on Sunday for his touchdown, which was amazing, because everyone's been like, this guy's first round pick and he's been terrible, but he did really well on Sunday. Just give him a little shout out.
Yeah, he deserves a shout out.
Also, I had some notes on and then deleted them on Cowboys cornerback Chidobe Awuzie. I think he's been pretty good. He was unfortunate in I think the Tennessee game, but I like him. I think he is underappreciated. The Cowboys defense ain't great, but I think he's one of the good parts about it.
It's getting better. I mean, Byron Jones isn't bad as well on the other side. I mean, Leighton Vander Esch is starting to really step up. With Sean Lee gone, and I think they're an underrated unit, Cowboys defense, and that's coming from a Redskins fan. That is high praise, believe me. Spit those words out, believe me.
So I think sticking with the going home and also 5th round picks, I'm going for punter for Seahawks, Michael Dixon. Why?
Nice.
What?
Nice. No, that's a really, really cool pick, and I like that a lot, and I think he will go. That's a really good pick.
Punters are people too.
Didn't even think about it, but yeah.
He is so cool. It is unreal.
He is, he's really, really good. So he was an award winner in college. He's barely put a punt outside the 5-yard lines. He's able to stop on a dime. He's a playmaker. He drop kicks. He even ran a first down from his own end zone. And that's all as a rookie. And he's an Aussie too.
And didn't he start playing only 3 years ago? Didn't he start punting years ago?
Yeah, he played in Aussie rules and then moved to Texas.
Yeah. So that was cool. 2015 that he moved, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. So
that would be 3 years, yeah. But, that's a good call. And to be honest, I think he might actually go.
Punting's a pretty underrated part of the game that's starting to get a bit more love after the Rams special team unit was awesome last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would be in serious trouble this season without some of Michael Dixon's punting. And not that I didn't love John Ryan. I loved John Ryan. But when you saw what he could do in preseason, I was just I just couldn't see us keeping John Ryan, which was sad. But Michael Dixon is the real deal with punting.
I mean, you're talking to someone that, has Tress Way on their team. I mean, that guy... also amazing, but I'm not going to try and steal the punting glory here. But
it's weird in high power offenses now. You field position so critical because you don't want to give a high powered offense just half of the field. You want to make them go the entire length of the field, and you don't want to just give them that short field position. So flipping it on the special teams has never been so critical.
Awesome. Well, keeping in the spirit of fun and games, this seamlessly brings us to our new regular segment on fantasy football.
Sorry, talking about punters.
I feel like I'm being made fun of here, but I'm not sure how.
Well, each week, Richard King and Chris Milner, who's right here, will be giving us hints and tips for the week ahead. Sadly, Rich is on IR because he's full of a cold. So, Chris, would you like to give us a lowdown?
Well, I would, but I kind of initially want to address Ryan's snort down the microphone.
Go on.
No. It wasn't at you, bro. It was because Liz said it brings us seamlessly after we were talking about punters.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that does make sense, actually. No, it's because like punters are betters, aren't they? The gamblers.
I like it.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what? But I get it now.
It was a nice link.
Actually, a really good segue. It's pity only one of us got it. But yeah, so Kingy and I went back and forth over this list, and we've nailed down what we think are some interesting plays this week for you fantasy heads out there who might be struggling with bye weeks and having to stream players, or one example of someone we anticipate a breakout week for. So we'll start with the quarterback position, and one of the most interesting options comes actually with a big caveat. Okay, so if Joe Flacco is unable to play because of his hip injury, consider looking at Ravens rookie Lamar Jackson. Okay, John Harbaugh is in save job mode right now, and if there was a week to start Jackson, this is it. All right, he's only been used in mainly red zone or gadget plays, but he did well under center during the preseason and can create possibilities both with his legs and his arms. So if you consider that Cincinnati have given up the third most fantasy points to QBs this season, the second most to running backs, and the fourth most to wide receivers, he's a tempting option. Plus, he's most likely available on waivers. With regards to the running back position, we like Jalen Rashad of the Oakland Raiders. And yes, I know the Raiders are atrocious, and there is a high chance they will be playing from behind, but that is more likely to affect Doug Martin, especially when you consider that Jordy Nelson and Martavis Bryant are both struggling with injuries. Amari Cooper is gone, and the Cardinals give up the third most fantasy points in the league to running backs. So he's also likely available to stream on waivers. The last position group we're going to cover is wide receiver, and this is someone who most likely isn't on waivers, but we feel if you own him, this is a good week to start him, and that is the aforementioned Amari Cooper, now of Dallas. Since his arrival, Cooper has led the team in both targets and receiving yards, and if there was a breakout game on the cards for him, we can see it being this week against the Falcons secondary that has given up the third most points, fantasy points to wide receivers. So you heard it here first. 100-yard game from Amari Cooper. That was Kingy's pick, not me, so if he's a bust, that wasn't my choice. But I fully back his decision. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Chris. So you'll be joining us, obviously, with Rich each week going forward, which is pretty exciting. And from next week, we will also have the guys from Odds Checker joining us each week to tell us about the best odds and the ones to watch from around the league. So, before we end the show, we've had a couple of questions come in over Twitter. One of them being from Ryan Capizario. Sorry if I got that wrong, Ryan. His question was, what are your thoughts on tanking in Fantasy League? Me, for example, I'm not making the playoffs this year, so I've started tanking. Got 2 first round, 1 second round, and 3 third round picks set up via trades for next season. I love it, but other players not so happy. Chris, you should answer this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, Ryan, I can see why your other team members are annoyed with you. That is pretty out of order. And in my league, we actually have a term for that. It's called collusion. And it's generally frowned upon because not only are you handicapping other playoff teams that maybe have scraped in, you haven't traded with, and now all of a sudden another playoff team is, much better equipped than they are. But also it's, I don't know, man. It's just
a bad thing to do.
It's just not done. Like, it's I think honestly, the only reason they gave up all those draft picks next year to you is because they're pretty likely going to kick you out of the league, and they won't be used for anything because that's not really cool, dude. Got to be honest. Sorry.
Can I just say, there's just been some news that's came out about the Steelers in Bell. Apparently, they've removed his name over his locker and are now plundering it, dividing up his many football shoes and other stuff.
That's basically a perfect analogy of what Ryan is doing to his fantasy team now.
Well, yeah, that is what apparently they're doing.
So there you go, Ryan. You're the Le'Veon Bell of your fantasy league, except without the skill or integrity.
There we go.
And I guess maybe not so much a question, but another little piece of news that has kind of been around Twitter today, but actually also happened about a week or so ago as well. The San Francisco 49ers cheerleader who's been kneeling for the national anthem. Thoughts?
I think she's amazing for doing it. Do you know that? I think it's absolutely incredible that it's moved from beyond the players, because they've said for ages that it's not just about them, it's about the whole community. It's about social injustice, and that is what she's standing for. She's not kneeling against the national anthem.
She's not standing though.
You know what I mean?
Sorry.
That is what she's representing by taking a knee. Okay. I've lost my train of thought now.
Sorry, Son. That was really mean of me.
She basically is getting a lot of stick because apparently people still think it's against the military when that's not what it is. The whole point of the military is so we can have we can fight for our rights. They fight for our rights so we can have these protests. We can do this sort of stuff. She's not against the national anthem. She's just standing for kneeling for what she believes in.
Yeah, I think it's an important. Excuse me. I think it's really brave of her first and foremost, because obviously the inevitable backlash will be unpleasant and has been unpleasant for in some circles. But it is important that it doesn't just go away. I know that the kneeling largely has just kind of faded to another NFL background issue because they just keep stockpiling problems, and this is another one that keeps lingering, rightly so. But yeah, I think it is important. Eric Reid's back on a team, which is really important. So this act from the cheerleader, yeah, it's really selfless, because as we know, as unfortunately we read some articles, you hear some stuff, some cheerleaders break their silence. Some of the cheerleading staff that on some teams aren't really treated that great as well. So I hope from an internal standpoint she doesn't have any backlash from the organisation.
Well, you're talking to the right person here, guys, because this is going to be some breaking news here. My wife's father, so my father-in-law, trains the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Cool.
The Cowboys.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
And believe me when I tell you, they are not treated very well. And they get really, really, really small amount of money. And they're basically almost, I mean, if you think about the fact that Kaepernick is still not playing for an NFL team, Reid was massively, handicapped in his career. These are women who are basically told out of the gate, you are entirely replaceable. The second you put on a bit too much weight, the second you get a bit too old, you're out the door, we're trading you in for a new model. And they know that going in, but it doesn't make it any less horrific treatment of human beings, women, but human beings in general. And for her to do that, I think, is more brave than an NFL player, because the NFL player, if they're a good player, they're potentially risking a lot of money. But bottom line is, when it comes down to it, other than with Kaepernick, eventually they'll be allowed to.
Will they?
Do it.
Will they? Will Kaepernick ever take another NFL snap?
No, I don't think he will.
No,
I
he
don't.
won't.
I don't think you will.
And I think he should.
But I don't
Nathan
think
Peterman had a job.
They're a quarterback.
All right, but I don't think Nike is going to have a campaign for this cheerleader if she gets cut. Put it that way.
Yes.
So these women don't
correct.
have the exposure or the platform that these NFL players do have, even if they were to get cut like Kaepernick. So what I think to be the silent voice is often the bravest one, and good for her. And I think good for all the cheerleaders actually for doing what they do because they're treated pretty horrifically, objectified, and hats off.
I think the state of things has become so bad where we're applauding people for basically standing up for their rights. That it shouldn't be the case that we applaud. This should be the norm to exercise this right without without the horrific rhetoric around it. So I think I agree with your point, Chris. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that the place we've got to where we're even having this conversation is pretty grim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the hypocrisy involved is next level, especially when you consider that, the president won't go and honour fallen troops at Arlington, wouldn't go to the World War I thing in Paris, and then you're complaining about players kneeling. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's for a different
podcast. Because of rain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all facts. I mean, regardless of my political opinion, I mean, it is true and happened. I'm not making any judgment on it.
The 99 Yards political podcast, which airs straight after this.
Surely though, if she does get cut, right, as you say, there surely would be a backlash from that though, because she would purely be getting cut because of her taking a knee, which is the whole.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are no statistics to say which cheerleader is better and therefore more qualified to get one than another one, a cheerleader who.
Well,
who took a knee.
let me ask you this: is she still on the squad?
Well, she was there. She was there on Sunday.
I mean,
she's done this before, so this is the second time she's done it at a 49ers game. So she's done it twice now. I'd hope I'd see her do it again a third time because I think that would be really, really unfair if that's the reason that she was cut.
Correct.
But
we
point
shouldn't demonize the 49ers also. If she's going to stay on the roster, then that is awesome. It's also the correct thing to do, to stand up for your staff.
Well, maybe they learned their mistake from Kaepernick. They're like, okay, we can't cut another one.
Maybe.
That was
Yeah.
that was huge backlash there. We lost a lot of endorsements there. We'll keep her on. But what my point is, had she been cut, many people wouldn't even have noticed. Because, I mean, no one really will. I mean, maybe you do, Shona, but, what's her name? She doesn't have the platform, and there's nothing against her as a person. But these cheerleaders are, as far as the NFL are concerned, are just an anonymous, faceless, voiceless entertainment aspect.
I 100% agree with what you're saying, but she's now created herself a platform by doing this. So she's got enough media attention now.
Yeah.
If she's not there, someone will find out why she's not there. Because she's created that own platform for herself. While she is not as big as, like you say, Kaepernick or Eric Reed, she's now made a platform for herself that people... I'm a journalist. If I didn't see her on the pitch kneeling, I'd be like, where is she? What's going on? Like, I'd want to find out.
Yeah, well, that's good. Good for her.
And, by the way, her name's Kayla Morris. She's 24.
Oh, that was going to be my next question. It would be really good if we actually had her name. Big her up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, shout out to her.
Absolutely. That's all for this week's show, but please do share your thoughts on Twitter. We'd love to know which underdogs you fancy for the Pro Bowl. Tweet us at 99yards, and don't forget to join us next week where we will have the one and only Nat Coombs joining our show, and where we'll also be interviewing former rugby player, now Pittsburgh Steeler, Christian Scotland Williamson. Thanks for listening.